Hi everybody, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia, and today we're going to be doing some Hobbs holiday sewing, so stick around. This is episode number 15 of Working Our Scraps Off, and this is really exciting because you're getting two patterns in one, and I can't wait to show them to you. But first, I want to thank Hobbs Batting, because without them, I wouldn't be doing this 2-for-1. They are sponsoring this month's episode, and I'm actually having a little quilt along. So at the end of the two tutorials, I will tell you all about that because there'll be some prizes and things like that if you watch this video between September 1st and the end of October. So stick around and you can watch that. It's at the end of the video. I use Hobbs Batting in all of my projects, and I really love their fusible, especially for projects like this. Today we're going to be doing two different placemats, and they're both holiday themed. I'm going to show you the original ones I made. This one is a winter trees. The white's kind of bright, and I did make it in a different color scheme, more holiday looking. So this could be Christmassy, it could be holiday, winter, whatever you want. And then the other one is Halloween or autumn. And here's my Halloween cat. You can see that cat head in the middle. And then here's one with more Halloween colors. These are fun, they are easy, and they're really cute. I really am happy with the way they turned out. I really love that cat in the pumpkin head. They are both great scrap busting patterns, and that is what this series is all about, working our scraps off. If you haven't already and you're interested, head over to Facebook, and there'll be a link in the description. It's my Facebook group called Working Our Scraps Off, and people post all kinds of beautiful scrappy work, and they post sort of their versions of the patterns that I show you every month. Both of these placemat patterns are fairly easy to do, especially once you've had all the pieces cut. There are a lot of pieces in both of them, especially there are a couple more in the tree one versus the cat one. So I highly urge you to head over to my website, www.createwithclaudia.com, where I have downloadable PDFs for both of these patterns. I will, of course, put up the measurements and everything on screen as well, but it might be easier to go over there and print out a copy of that as well to help you out. I also, one tip for this is you want to sew in the order that I show you that you sew in there. They come together nicely, but they have to be in that order. So let's get started. So I'm putting up on screen a picture of all of the pieces we're going to need to make the pine tree placemat. I really love this one, and this one the one I'm making on camera, I actually decided to do as a more Christmassy colors. The blue and white one I showed you as the example is more of a winter scene. It's really pretty. Any colors are beautiful in this one. It's just a nice winter scene placemat that looks great at the holidays. But let's get started on the pieces. There are a lot of pieces to this placemat. It's easy to put together, but there are a lot of pieces, so I highly recommend that you head over to my website to download the PDF, which has this all listed out for you. But I'm going to go through it anyway. So for the large tree, piece number 1, 1 square cut 3 1/4 inches. Piece number 2, 1 piece cut 2 1/2 by 6 1/2 inches. Piece number 3, 1 piece cut 2 1/2 inches by 8 1/2 inches. And piece number 4, 2 1/2 inches by 10 1/2 inches. And that's all for the large tree. For the star, you need piece number 5, you need 1 square, cut 2 1/2 inches square. And for piece number 6, you need 8 squares cut 1 1/2 inches square. For the tree trunks, you need, this is piece number 7, you need 2 pieces cut 1 1/2 by 2 1/2 inches. For the small tree, piece number 8 is 1 square cut 3 1/4 inches square. Piece number 9, 1 strip cut 2 1/2 inches by 6 1/2 inches. For that outside border, you need 2 strips, and this is piece number 10, 2 strips cut 1 1/2 by 12 1/2 inches. For piece number 11, 2 strips cut 1.5 by 17.5 inches. And now for the background, and there are a bunch here. Piece number 12, you need 1 strip cut 1.5 inches by 10.5 inches. Piece number 13, 2 squares cut 3.5 inch squared. Piece number 14, 10 squares cut 2.5 inches square. Piece number 15, 2 squares cut 3.25 inches. Piece number 16, 5 strips cut 1.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Piece number 17, 10 strips cut 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Piece number 18, 1 strip cut 1.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And last but not least, piece number 19, you need 4 squares cut 1.5 inches. Now for the backing, you're going to need a piece about 16 by 23, and I like to have a larger backdrop sort of backing when I'm quilting my pieces, and a piece of batting. And then you'll also need a strip for binding. All right, so we're ready to start sewing. This is exciting. We're going to do the large tree first. When you download that pattern, I highly recommend you follow those directions in that order. That's the best way to put both of these placemats together. So we need 1 strip number 2. Then that was for the large tree. And then you need 2 squares of piece number 14. Those are those 2.5 inch squares of the background fabric. So that's to make this first part. And you're going to flip these over, these squares, and you're going to draw a diagonal line on the back. Just use your ruler and a marking tool. I don't usually use a pencil, but in this case I do, because that's all I have. And just draw a light diagonal line on both of them. All right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that strip, this is that piece number 12, and you're going to line this up on one side, excuse me, and you are going to, and hopefully you can see that okay. The lights, there we go, that light's a little bright. Luckily I have a monitor so I can see when I'm showing you things. Anyway, there's a line there, that diagonal line we just drew. You're going to sew on that diagonal line. In fact, you might even just 1 stitch width towards this outside corner. Just sew along that line. And then we're going to trim away that excess. And I'll show you how to do that, but you're going to do that on both sides of this strip. Now let me just show you, I want to show you now I'm adding the second strip. You can see where I've sewn this one on this side. The second strip, you want to make sure they're facing each other, like the diagonal line. Does that make sense? This diagonal line's going this way, this diagonal line's going this way. So now we're going to sew on that drawn diagonal line. Okay, so you can see now where I have sewn down that line. I need to adjust that light. It's really bright on this white fabric, or this pale green fabric I have. And now what we're going to do is we're going to trim away that excess. But before I do that, I'm just going to finger press these 2 sides back just to make sure nothing got skewed when I sew. Sometimes if you don't sew it quite right, it's not going to end up the right length. We want this strip to be 6.5 inches. And I'm just going to use, and yes, that works. So let's fold that back over, flatten it out, and you're going to trim off this excess, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just trim that away. You can save that if you really want to, or you can toss it. And I just line up the 1/4 inch on my ruler, that marking, with the line, with the stitch line that I just stitched. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these over to my pressing surface and press these open so you have a nice strip with those 2 corners. Alrighty, so here's how it turned out. Looks great. You can see that sort of diagonal movement now on this one. Now we're going to repeat the same thing with some more strips. We're going to take, we need strip number, let me look this up, it's number 3, which is this one, number 4, which is this long one. We're going to do the same thing we just did, adding those diagonal corners. And then for the small tree, you're going to do the same thing with that strip number 9. And you're going to add on each of these ends 2 of those squares with the diagonal line drawn on them on each end of the strip, like we just did with this one. And I will show you how those turn out. Alrighty, so here we are. Here's the one we made earlier. Here's another one the same size. This is for the smaller tree. And then here are the other ones. Hopefully you can see them all okay. They're turning out nice. You can see that tree form sort of shaping. Let me move them down just a little bit. There you go. You can see that forming a little bit. Like I said, this is for the smaller tree. And now we're going to make the tops of the tree. So I'm going to set these aside for right now. So to make the tops of the tree, you need that square number 1, which was 3 1/4, plus 1 square number 15, which was the background fabric that measured 3 1/4. You're going to need those 2 together. On the back of the lighter fabric, you're going to draw a diagonal line. And then you're going to line these fabrics up right sides facing. And this time we're making half square triangles for that top of the tree. So basically what you're going to do is you are going to sew down 1/4 inch along each side of that drawn line, of that diagonal line. So 1/4 inch down this side and 1/4 inch down this side. And then I'll show you what we do next. And you're going to repeat that with the square number 8, which is for the other tree, and another square number 15. So all right, so you can see how I've sewn down each side of that drawn line, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to split this block in half on the drawn line. So you just get your ruler and your your rotary cutter, excuse me, and you're going to line it up on the drawn line, because basically it's very easy. We're making 2 half square triangles. So we're going to fold those, we're going to open those up and press, and I'm going to press, to make it easy when you're assembling the treetop, I press one to the light fabric and the other one to the dark fabric. Alrighty, so here they are. Here are all of my half square triangles. Now they're not quite the right size. We need to trim these down, and we trim them down to 2 1/2 inches square. So I'm going to show you how to trim one down, and then I'll do the rest. You get that nice ruler with that diagonal line. I can't live without this ruler. It's a nice square. It has a diagonal line, and you're going to line that diagonal line that's on the ruler on the diagonal seam there. And the first thing you want to do is just make a nice sharp corner. So I go all the way as far as I can up that way. You're going to get rid of that excess. So now you have a nice starting point to really get a nice crisp half square triangle measurement. So you're going to rotate that around, and then you're going to find the 2 1/2 inch square, 2 1/2 inch marker on your ruler. And right where that 2 1/2 inches meets that diagonal line, you're going to line that up with the corner you just cut. And then before you cut, I make sure this is lined up with the fabric, this is lined up, and this is lined up. It's a great way to work with this ruler. This ruler is really my favorite. And 2 1/2 inches square. And then you're just going to trim that off. And there you have it. There's your 2 1/2 inch square, half square triangle, and that's going to be the top of the trees. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the rest of these really quickly. All right, so here are these 4 half square triangles. I'm going to set those aside. We're not going to use them quite yet. I'll just put those with the other parts of the tree. And now we're going to make the star, and I love this little star. Alrighty, so to make the star, you need 4 pieces of number 17. That's the background fabric. These are 1.5 by 2.5 inches, and you need 4 of those. Okay, 4, and then you need 8 of the squares of the star fabric, and that was piece number 6. So you need 8 of those squares, and what we're going to do on all 8 of the squares is like we did with the other one. We're going to draw a diagonal line on the back. Luckily this is light enough so I can see it. These are small pieces. Oops, it's making my ruler uneven. And you're just going to do the same thing we did when we made those parts of the pine tree. So I'm actually not going to show you the whole thing, but you're going to draw a diagonal line on each of these pieces, and then you're going to put them right sides together on each end. Now, the tricky part on this one is these are shorter, so you're going to, well, I'll show you how to do one of them. You want to sew one side first and then trim it and press it back before you add the other side. The other ones, it was easier. We could add them both before we, both sides before we could trim it. But this, because it's so narrow and small, you have to add one at a time. So I'm going to show you how to do one, and then I'll finish the rest. Okay, so I sewed down that drawn line, and now I'm going to trim it. And you'll note I haven't added the other side. And just, again, that 1/4 inch seam allowance, trim that away, and we're going to go press that really quickly, and then I can just finger press this one real nicely. Normally I would take this to my ironing surface, but to just do some more quick video here, I'm just going to press that with my fingers, and then we add the other one, diagonal line pointing towards the center, and lining it up with that end. Like so. So that the diagonal line's this way, and now we're going to sew down that diagonal line that we drew and trim that away and then press it. Alright, so when we fold that back with my pencil, so it's not rolling around, there you have it. It looks like a little flying geese unit, real small. It should be 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And I'm going to repeat that, and you should have 4 of these when we're done. Alrighty, so here they are. Aren't they really cute? This is going to be, we're going to start making this star some more. These are for the outside, the points of the star. So we're going to set those aside. And then we need the center square. It's piece number 5. And that was the square that was 2.5 inches of the star fabric. Plus we need 4 of the squares of piece number 19. Those are those 1.5 inch squares of the background fabric. All right, and now we are ready to put this star block together. It's just like a sawtooth star. I'm going to lay it out. Again, nice and tiny. This is a small little star, but it packs a big punch. And then we put those squares in the corner, and we're going to assemble this like we do any other block. We're going to assemble it by rows, and I will sew this together, this and this, always using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I will add this row, this end piece to to these rows, and then I will sew the rows together. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that really quickly, and then you'll see the result of our star. So again, this to this, and then the one thing I do, I should point that out, is I'm going to press these to the outside, the top and the bottom row to the outside, press those, and then this one I'll press to the inside. Alrighty, it's coming along. I just wanted to show you really quickly the progress. There's how we made the rows. And now I'm just going to attach the rows together. And the nice thing is, because you press these two to the outside and this one to the inside, when you go to sew them together, they're going to nest really nicely. You can just nest those right up so you get nice sharp points. And I will pin there and I will pin there. All right, to start assembling the tree, we need piece number, let's see, that's number 7. That was the tree trunk. And that was 1.5 by 2.5 inches. And then we need 2 pieces of the background fabric, number 16. This is piece number 16, and we need 2 of those, and we're going to add 1 to each side of that tree trunk. All right, so here's that. There's my little tree trunk out of candy canes. I love that. And we're going to add this strip to the bottom of that strip number 4 that we prepared earlier for the large tree. So hopefully it fits. It looks like it will. Fingers crossed. You always cross your fingers. And we're just going to add that to the bottom with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alrighty, so here you go. Isn't that cute? It's really coming together. You can see the bottom of the tree, and I'm actually going to leave this so you can see it, and then we're going to keep assembling these rows of the pine tree. The next strip you're going to need is strip number 3, and then you're going to need 2 of the pieces. This is, I'm sorry, not strip, this is piece number 3 that we had adjusted with those diagonal background squares, and then we're going to need 2 pieces number 17 of the background fabric. And the number 17, those were the 1.5 by 2.5 inches, and we're going to add 1 to each end of this. Very easy to do. All right, so then it's going to look like this, and then what I'm going to do, once I press that out, I'm going to just press that, I will add that to the top of this, this unit that we made a few minutes ago. Alrighty, you can see that tree really forming. I'm loving the way this is turning out. I'm just going to put that up. And now we need that strip number 2. That was the first one we made. And then 2 of these squares. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. This is piece number 2. And then 2 piece number 14s, 1 to the left and 1 to the right. Again, we're just centering that in there. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to add this. You get the picture. You're going to add this to the top of the tree. Here we are. Isn't this adorable? I'm loving the way this tree's coming together. Now we just need the top part of it. So remember those 2 half square triangles we made? We made one for the large tree and one for the small. The first thing you want to do is sew these together. I'm just going to move that out of the way a little bit. Sew these together, and this is why we press them the way we did. If you remember, we pressed them opposite sides. That way they nest nicely, and you'll get a nice sharp point there. And you're just going to sew a 1/4 inch down there. All right, so there we go. Now, of course, we still need to finish this up. There's my little half square triangles sewn together. And then we're going to add a piece number 16. That's piece number 16 of the background fabric, 1.5 by 4.5, to the top of this half square triangle unit we just made. All right, we are almost finished. There's the top. I pressed that open, and now we're going to add 2 pieces. These are piece number 13s, 1 on the right, 1 on the left. And then what we do, once we've pressed that, we're going to add that to the top of this large pine tree, and then we'll be done with the pine tree, the large one. Alrighty, there's my large scrappy pine tree. Isn't that cute? It's coming together. Now we're going to make the small one. Okay, so to make the small one, the small pine tree, you need a piece number 7, which is that tree trunk, and then you need 2 piece number 17s to sew 1 on each side. You're going to do that, and then you're going to add that, once that's sewn, to the bottom of this strip. And this is strip piece number 9, excuse me, that's been adjusted with those diagonal background fabrics. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, here's the start of the small tree. And then we're going to add those other half square triangles. We're going to sew them together too. And then we'll add a piece number 17. Let me just make sure that I have the right piece. Yes. to each side of that as well. So sew these together and then add a piece number 17 to each side of that. And then once that's all sewn, you add that to the top to finish up your small tree. Alrighty, here's my small tree. Isn't it cute? To the top of this, we're adding a piece number 18. Alrighty, here's my small star, all ready to go. I'm going to set that aside, and then we're going to bring back that star we made earlier. And we need two piece number 16s, one on the left and one on the right. And I'll add those, and then we add that to the top of this small tree. Okay, so first add these two, press them, and then add them to the top of the small tree. All right, here we go. There's that unit here, and now what we're going to do is we are going to add piece number 12 to the left of it, and then we're going to bring back that large pine tree. Once you're going to add this strip here, and then add this unit to this once that's completed. So we're going to have one big piece. So I am going to do that now. It's really coming together. And then the last thing we have to do on this one is add the borders. Like I said, there are a lot of little steps to this, but it really isn't that hard to put together. Alrighty, so here we go. Now the last thing we need to do is add the borders. And we are going to add the top and the bottom first. And that was piece number, let me look that up, that would be piece number 11. You're going to put a piece number 11 on the top and one on the bottom, and then you're going to add piece number 10 after you've sewn these on and pressed them. Add piece number 10 to the left and the right, and we will be done with this placemat top. Alrighty, finished. I know it's a lot of little pieces, but it's lots of fun to make. I love it. I love the way this turned out. Very festive and very holiday-ish. Now, next thing I would do would be to quilt this. And I will be using this really pretty plaid background. And you lay that down. And remember, this was 16 by about, I think it was 23 inches. Nicely pressed. And then a piece of batting, the same size. And I'm going to tell you about this awesome batting, and I'll show you how I use it. This is Hobbs fusible batting. I absolutely love this product. It presses nicely. It makes it so easy to quilt with. This is the last. I have a couple little pieces left, and that is it. So what I do is you take this over, you follow the instructions on the bag. And basically, once you press this, you can wiggle it around. I mean, not too much, of course, but it's fusible. You won't have to baste it. That's basically the basting is using the Hobbs fusible batting. I love it for projects, especially smaller ones like this one. It just makes it so much easier because I'm not going to lie, my least favorite thing is to baste. So basically, again, I'll take this over to my pressing. I'll follow the instructions on the packaging for the Hobbs fusible batting. And then I will quilt this. Very easy. I'm just going to do some straight line quilting, and when I come back I'll show you how it looks. But before I do that, I want to press this, and I just want to show you really quickly how nice that batting is. Alright, so I pressed this like they said on the container, on the packaging, and look at that. See, I'm not going to... That is that fusible batting. You don't need to pin it or anything. I just pressed it. Love it, love it, love it for this project. Or for any other project, but especially my smaller like wall quilts. And I just think it's awesome. It would work with bigger quilts too. I just don't have the floor space to make a really big quilt and press it like that. But I am now going to quilt this. I'm not going to show you that on camera, but I'm just going to do some easy straight line stitching. And when I come back, you will see the finished product. Okay, so on the screen you see a picture of lots of pieces of fabric, lots of cuts. This is for the cat placemat. It's Halloween cat, lots of fun. It's that cute little kitty in the middle with the pumpkin. And I'm going to read you off the pieces. There are a lot of pieces to this placemat, but if you go to my website, I have all of the pieces laid out. There's a downloadable PDF with how to assemble it, as well as a whole list of the pieces. But I'm going to go over them for you right now, and then we will get sewing. This is for all the pumpkin fabrics. Piece number 1, you need 2 pieces that are size 2.5 by 9.5. Piece number 2, 1.5 by 5.5. You need 1 of those. Piece number 3, 2.5 by 4.5 inches. You'll need 2 of those. Piece number 4 is 1.5 inches square, and you need 2 of those. For the cat fabric, piece number 5, 1.5 inch square, you need 2 of those. Piece number 6, 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches, you need 1 of those. Piece number 7, 2.5 inches by 5.5 inches, you need 1 of those. For the leaf on top of the pumpkin, that's piece number 8, and you need 1 3.25 inch square. For the stem, piece number 9, you need 1 piece cut 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. For the 2 side strips, those 2 long side strips, piece number 10, you need 2 of them, 2.5 inches by 12.5 inches. And then for the background, which in my case on this one is a white with little black plus signs, piece number 11, 3.5 inches by 4.5 inches, 2 of them. Piece number 12, 2.5 inches square, you need 4 of them. Piece number 13, 1 square cut 3.25 inches. Piece number 14, 1 strip cut 1.5 by 9.5 inches. Piece number 15, 1 strip cut 1.5 by 5.5 inches. And piece number 16, 2 strips cut 2.5 by 9.5 inches. So I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit, and then we will get started on this placemat. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is prepare some strips because you have the angles of the cat head and everything. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you on one of them, and then I'll tell you what other ones you need to do this technique on. You're going to need strip number 2, which was the pumpkin fabric, 1.5 by 5.5 inches, and then you need 2 of the 1.5 inch squares. That's piece number 5 of the cat fabric. And in my case, I'm using this fun black with puzzle shapes, black and white puzzle shape fabric for the cat head. On the back of those small squares, you're going to draw a diagonal line. With the black fabric, it's a little bit harder to see, so I'm going to draw this really dark. If you have a good marking tool, I'm using pencil. I normally don't use pencil because it will stain, but in this case, it's on the back, and I'm using it for the demo purposes. You can see it better than my marking tool. I have a water-soluble pen I use for that. And just mark both of those squares. And then what you're going to do is you're going to place right sides facing one of these squares on one end, and you're just going to sew on that diagonal line that we just drew. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then we're going to repeat that on the other side with the other square, with both of them facing in. So the diagonal line will face towards the center, and on this one it's facing towards the center as well. So I'm going to do that really quickly. Okay, so you can see it here, and it's hard to see, I know it is on the camera, but there you can see where I sewed down on that drawn line, and now I'm going to trim these back. I'm just going to do a quick eyeball check really quickly just to make sure that they're pretty even, and they are. This is a very forgiving project, but which I like. So I'm going to get my ruler and my rotary cutter. Basically, you're going to trim. You're going to find your 1/4 inch line on your ruler, line it up along that sewn edge, along that seam, along the stitching, and just cut off that little end right there. And you're going to do it on this side as well. Very easy to do. And then you're going to take this over to your pressing surface. I'm just going to finger press it right now. I'm going to press them all at once. It saves me some time. But that is what your strip is going to look like. Okay, so that was that strip number 2, which was the pumpkin fabric with the cat. So that's making the little cat ears. Maybe I should flip it around. There you go. So I'm going to go ahead. There's 3 other strips I need to prepare like this. So we're going to use that same method, and we're going to do the following pairings. You need the number 6 strip, which was the cat fabric, which is also 1.5 by 5.5, with 2 of the number, let's see if I have that right, the number 4 squares of the pumpkin fabric. You're going to do the same thing, drawing the diagonal line, and it's going to look like this one, just different colors. And then the last pairing, you're going to prepare these strips. You have these 2 strips number 1, that was from the pumpkin fabric, and then you're going to pair these up with those square number 12s of the background fabric. All of them we're doing the same way that we did this one, so I'm going to do that really quickly and then press them, and then you'll see how those all look. All right, so here are the strips. There's the first one we did. And then that's what you're going to come up with, depending on your colors, but that's what they look like. And we're going to set those aside for right now. And the next thing we want to do is make some half square triangles. And that is to make the leaves. So let me pull over. We need square number 8 and square number 13, or pieces number 8 and number 13. And that would be the green and the background fabric. So here they are, and on the back of the lighter one, you're going to draw another line, a diagonal line. We're making just easy half square triangles. And for this one, it's a little bit different. We're not sewing on the drawn diagonal line. We're going to line these up right sides together. Line them up nice and straight. It's kind of hard to see, I know, with that white, but I drew that line. We're going to sew 1/4 inch along each, let me just take my pencil here, alongside each of the, we're going to sew 1/4 inch alongside that drawn line. So you're going to have 2 seams, one on this side with 1/4 inch. All right, so here it is. You can sort of see, I have to tilt it up a little bit. My camera shines really brightly on white fabrics. So you can see my 2 seams, and then what I'm going to do is get my rotary cutter. I'm going to split this block in half. Just going to line that up, and this time you're going to cut on the drawn line. So basically we're getting 2 half square triangles. It's like magic. And here they are, and you're going to press those open. And I just pressed towards the dark. I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. And then we have to still trim these down to the right size. These are a little bit bigger. That's how I make my half square triangles. So we're just going to have to trim them down. We're going to trim them to 2.5 inches square. Very easy to do, and I'll show you that in a second. Alrighty, so here are the 2 half square triangles, and now I'm going to show you how to trim one down to 2.5 inches. It's very easy to do. You're going to take this ruler. I love my square ruler. It has a diagonal line on it. You're going to line that diagonal line on the diagonal seam as close as you can to this edge. And you're going to make a nice sort of initial cut to get a nice sharp starting corner there. And there you go. So there's my nice corner. I'm going to just rotate that around. And then I find the 2.5 inch point on that diagonal line, and I'm going to line that point up with this point here, and then make sure before I cut that that point is there. It's lined up along here on the seam, and then here on this left side and on the bottom, and it is. Press it down and then trim. You're looking for that 2.5 inch mark. Depends on what size, but for this one, it's 2.5 inches. And there you go, a perfect half square triangle. So I'm going to do that with this one really quickly. All right, and there are our 2 half square triangles that are 2.5 inches square. So we're going to set those aside now. And now we're going to put together the kitty cat head. So for that, we need these 2 strips that we made earlier. If I can grab them. There we go. And this is a very visual block, so it's very helpful to look at what you're putting together. So here's that strip. This would be strip number 2 modified with the things, and then strip number 6 modified with those corners. And then the last thing we need for this is strip number, let me look it up, I think it's number 7. Yeah, strip number 7 in the center. Like so. Isn't that cute? That's going to be my fun jigsaw puzzle. Maybe I should name him Jigsaw, this kitty cat placemat. Anyway, so you're going to sew this to the top and this to the bottom, and then you'll get that cat head shape. All right, so there's my little kitty cat. Seriously, look how cute it already is. I'm loving my jigsaw. I'm going to name that. Anyway, one thing I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, you're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance throughout. And also, I did mention downloading the pattern. You want to follow that pattern in the steps, because to put this together, you need to follow the steps. So you can't just put together some of the end fabrics first. You want to do the steps that are laid out in that pattern that I wrote. So getting back to this, the next thing you're going to need those 2 piece number 3s to add to the left and right of the cat head. And let me get those. So it's going to look like that. You're just going to add 1 to the left and 1 to the right. Very easy. Alrighty, so here we are. Here's my cat head being flanked by the pumpkin fabrics. It's really, I love this color scheme. And then we're going to get those strip number 1s, if you remember those modified ones. Put 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And I'm just going to add those right now using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alrighty, we're moving right along. I will say of the 2 patterns, the pine trees and then this cat pumpkin, this is probably the easier one to assemble. It doesn't have quite as many pieces, but that being said, they're both pretty easy. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to add, this is strip number 14, and you're going to add that to the bottom of the pumpkin. And the next thing we're going to add are the 2, let's see, there's a 2 strip number 16s, and those were 2.5 by 9.5 inches. We're going to add 1 to each side. And that was that background fabric. I love that sort of black and white look. And those are all little plus signs. So you're going to add 1 to the left and 1 to the right. All right, there we go. Now we're going to set this aside right now, so because we need to make the leaf and the stem part at the top. So for this one, you need those 2 half square triangles you made. And you're just going to sew them together. Make sure I'm laying them out the right way. And then you need that stem piece, which was piece number 9. And in this case, just a fun little festive piece. So what you're going to do is you're going to sew this to this, this to this, and then press that, and then we're going to add another piece to the top. Alrighty, there is my stem and leaves, and now we're going to add piece number 15 of the background fabric to the top. Alrighty, we're moving right along. And then lastly on this part, we're going to add 1 of the piece number 11s to the left and to the right of this stem unit that we made. And piece number 11 was 3.5 by 4.5 inches. Alrighty, so here is the top of the pumpkin, and I'm going to move that up, and I'm going to bring over the pumpkin with the kitty cat. Oh, I love this. I love this color scheme. So what we're going to do is, let me just move it up a little bit. I have a monitor so I can see, which is kind of nice. There we go. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, but you're going to add this to the top of this, and then we're going to add those 2 border pieces at the end. Alrighty, here it is. I'm loving this. So the next thing we need to do, last thing we need to do, is we need to add the 2 border strips on the ends. And these were piece number 10. And you're just going to add 1 on each side, and then we're ready to put this together. Alrighty, so here is the finished top. How cute is that? I'm in love with this placemat. So this is my Halloween cats or autumn cats. The other color I showed you was more autumnal. At the end I'll show you both versions. And I've already seen a couple versions with my pattern testers, so it's fun to see all the different fabrics that people use. But this is what it looks like. The next thing I'm going to do is quilt it. Now I'm not going to show you how I actually quilt it. I mean, I'll show you at the end how it looks when it turns out. But I do want to show you what else you need to finish up your placemat. You need backing fabric and batting. And I cut it about 16 by 21 inches. So for my backing, I have this awesome bat fabric. I thought, you know, what could be more appropriate for Halloween? So it's like a bat, it says boo on it. So you're going to place that one piece wrong sides facing. Okay, I zoomed out the camera a little bit so you can see it better. And then I have a piece of batting. This is my very last piece of this fusible. This is Hobbs fusible batting. Perfect, perfect, perfect for a project like this. I love their fusible batting, especially for my smaller projects. I mentioned that in the other tutorial as well for the winter one. And if you watch my videos, a lot of my smaller projects, I use Hobbs fusible. It's so easy to use because I'm going to let you know a secret. I hate to baste. And also I have problems with my right hand, so it's really hard for me to pin baste, and that's how I've always basted. So this, for me, is just a great solution. And basically, you're going to follow the instructions on the packaging to baste this together. It's with some pressing. And I'm going to go do that really quickly. And then I'm just going to show you how nice this batting is. Because basically, you can move it around and this won't shift at all. And neither will the back. I mean, you can't shake it really hard or anything, of course. But if you press it, it's perfect. And it quilts really nicely in the machine, which I like too. And it's nice and thin. And I don't know if I mentioned that in the pine trees, the portion of this video. I like to have thinner batting when I make table placemats and table runners, just because sometimes if you use the really puffy batting, if you have a cup, it might tip over. You know, you never know. I just like a thinner look on a table. But let me go press this really quickly, and then I'll show you how wonderful that batting is. All right, here it is all pressed together. I'm just going to show you really quickly. Hopefully you can see that. See how I'm just sort of shaking it a little bit? It's not moving. If you peel it back, you can hear it pull. I don't want to peel it back because I don't want to mess up that seam. I'm probably just going to do very easy straight line or cross hatch quilting on this piece, like with the other one, and then I'll bind it. I'm probably going to use orange binding or maybe green for a fun little pop. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. So I can't resist showing them off one more time. Here you go. Here's my Halloween cats. That one makes me smile. That's the Halloween cats. Here it is in more autumnal colors, which I think works really well. I like that too, sort of softens it up a little bit. A lot of that depends on how you like to decorate your tables and things like that. And I did want to mention, I don't know if I mentioned that in any of the videos, I just made one of each of these. You could make a set of 4 or 6, you know, however many you need, or you could just make one and use it as a wall hanging. I think it makes a really great wall hanging too. It's a nice size for that. And then of course here are my holiday ones. Here's the real Christmassy color, you know, greens and whites, traditional colors. And the background, even though it doesn't show on the camera so well, it's a really pale, pale green, so it actually softens it up a little bit. I know the glare off the light sort of makes it a lot brighter than it is in person. And here it is in some really pretty winter blues. I like that color scheme too. I like this one a lot. So those are my holiday placemats. They are both part of the Hobbs Holiday event that I'm so excited to be announcing. So stick around because I will be announcing that next. So you just saw those great placemats that I made, and I hope you give them a try. But what I'm really excited to announce is that I've been working with Hobbs Batting, and we are having a Hobbs Holiday sewing event. It's a quilt along, very easy to do, and at the end there will be some prizes, hint hint, a lot of batting to give away and a couple patterns. So I urge you to head over to my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. I have a Facebook group called Working Our Scraps Off that you can join. You can also, if you don't want to do that, I am posting all of the information as well over on Instagram. The quilt along will start September 1st, and these are the two different patterns. You don't have to do both. You can only do you can do both if you want, but there's either the winter trees or the pumpkin, the cat head in the pumpkin. Either one will do, or like I said, both. I do want to add, unfortunately, this the giveaway is for U.S. residents only. You're welcome to still participate in the quilt along. I'd love to see all your versions of either one of these placemats, but the giveaway is only for U.S. residents. So thank you again so much to Hobbs Batting. I really appreciate their support on this one. And thank you all for watching Working Our Scraps Off. This is a monthly YouTube series where I provide a free pattern, free project for scrap fabric. And I know you, like me, probably have lots of it. My bins keep getting bigger even though I keep trying to do more projects. So I'm not sure how that's happening. I think it's like magic or something. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers and I really do appreciate it. And if you're quilting along with us for this event, make sure you let me know in the comments which one you're choosing. Are you choosing the cat or are you choosing the trees? I'd be curious to know which one. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.